You don't need more followers. You need real allies. Networking isn't about collecting contacts, it's about creating trust. Dale Carnegie built his life on one truth. People respond to sincerity, ask questions, remember names, make people feel important. These small acts build powerful bridges. You don't need to be smooth or scripted. You just need to care. Connection is your greatest currency, and most people are starving for it. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to. Master your mind and tell us, where are you watching from? Listen carefully. In a world obsessed with digital connections, we've forgotten the power of human ones. You scroll through hundreds of profiles. You collect business cards like trophies. You attend networking events like a hunter stalking prey. But here's what most people don't understand. You're playing the wrong game entirely. Connection is not about quantity. It's about quality. It's not about who you know. It's about who remembers you when opportunity knocks. It's about who thinks of you when they need someone they can trust. It's about who calls you when they have something valuable to share. Dale Carnegie understood this truth before the digital age made us forget it. He built an empire on a simple principle. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. This isn't sentiment. This is strategy. This is the foundation of every meaningful relationship, every business deal, every life-changing opportunity that will ever come your way. Think about the last networking event you attended. How many business cards did you collect? How many meaningful conversations did you have? Most people focus on the cards. They measure success by the stack in their pocket. But the cards end up in a drawer. The connections fade into digital noise. The opportunities slip away because there was no real foundation to build on. But let me ask you this. Who was the most memorable person you met that night? Was it the person with the smoothest pitch? The one with the most impressive title? The one who talked the loudest about their achievements? Or was it the person who asked you thoughtful questions? The one who remembered your name throughout the conversation? The one who made you feel heard, understood, valued? You know the answer. We all do. The person who made you feel important was the one you remembered. They understood something profound about human nature. We don't connect with perfection. We connect with attention. We don't remember information. We remember how someone made us feel. This is the currency of connection. Not your resume, not your achievements, not your social media following, your ability to make others feel valued, understood, and important. This is what opens doors. This is what builds trust. This is what creates the kind of relationships that change lives and build careers. Most people treat networking like a transaction. They approach every conversation asking, "What can I get from this person?" But Carnegie knew better. He approached every interaction asking, "How can I serve this person? How can I make them feel valued? How can I understand what matters to them?" When you shift from taking to giving, everything changes. People sense your sincerity. They feel your genuine interest. They trust your motives. And trust, my friend, is the foundation of every powerful connection you'll ever make. Connection isn't about impressing people. It's about investing in them. You've been taught to win people over, to persuade, to convince, to charm your way into their good graces. This approach fails because it treats people like obstacles to overcome rather than individuals to understand. Dale Carnegie discovered something revolutionary. People don't want to be won. They want to be known. Stop trying to impress. Start trying to understand. The moment you shift from performing to discovering, everything changes. People sense when you're trying to manipulate them. They feel the agenda behind your smile. They recognize the pitch hiding behind your compliments, but they also recognize genuine curiosity when they encounter it. Here's what most people don't understand. Everyone you meet is carrying a story. They have dreams that keep them awake at night. They have fears that whisper in quiet moments. They have victories they're proud of and struggles they're navigating. When you approach them as a puzzle to solve rather than a target to hit, you unlock something powerful. Think about your best friendships. Did they begin with someone trying to win you over? Or did they start with someone who was genuinely curious about who you are? The answer is obvious. Real connection begins with real interest. Not the kind of interest that asks, "How can this person benefit me?" but the kind that asks, "Who is this person, really?" But let me ask you this. When was the last time you entered a conversation with no agenda? When did you last speak with someone purely to understand their perspective, their challenges, their aspirations? Most of us are so focused on what we want to say next that we miss what they're actually saying now. Carnegie taught that the most important question in any interaction isn't, "How do I look?" It's, "How do they feel?" When you focus on their experience instead of your performance, you discover things that matter. You learn what motivates them. You understand what they value. You recognize what they need. This isn't manipulation. This is connection. There's a profound difference. Manipulation seeks to use what you learn against someone. Connection seeks to use what you learn for someone. One builds walls, the other builds bridges. People are not problems to solve. They're not markets to penetrate. They're not resources to exploit. They're individuals with unique experiences, perspectives, and wisdom. When you treat them as such, they respond accordingly. They open up. They trust you. They want to know you in return. The salespeople who struggle are those who see every conversation as a battle to win. The ones who succeed see every conversation as an opportunity to learn. They ask better questions. They listen more carefully. They remember what matters, and because they do, people remember them. Curiosity is magnetic. When someone senses that you're genuinely interested in their thoughts, their experiences, their challenges, they lean in. They share more. They trust deeper. They see you as someone worth knowing because you see them as someone worth understanding. This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of preparing your next impressive statement, you prepare your next thoughtful question. Instead of thinking about what you want them to know about you, you think about what you want to know about them. Instead of performing, you're connecting. Most people walk into networking events with a mental script. They have their elevator pitch memorized. They know their talking points. They're ready to perform. But Carnegie knew better. He walked into every interaction with mental curiosity. He had questions prepared. He had genuine interest activated. He was ready to learn. When you stop trying to win people and start trying to learn them, you discover something remarkable. They want to be learned. They want to be understood. They want someone to care about their story, their perspective, their experience. And when you become that person, you become unforgettable. Maya Angelou said it perfectly. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Dale Carnegie built his philosophy on this truth decades before it became famous. He understood that connection isn't about the words you speak. It's about the emotions you create. Think about the most memorable people in your life. Can you recite their conversations word for word? Probably not, but you can instantly recall how they made you feel. The teacher who believed in you, the colleague who supported you during a difficult project, the stranger who showed you kindness when you needed it most. Their words may have faded, but the feeling remains vivid. This is the secret weapon of masterful connectors. They don't rely on impressive speeches or perfect presentations. They focus on creating positive emotional experiences. They make people feel valued, understood, important, and appreciated. These feelings create lasting impressions that no amount of clever conversation can match. But here's what most people don't understand. You create feelings through attention, not performance. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most memorable. The most charming isn't always the most trusted. The most impressive often leaves the least impact. It's the person who makes others feel heard, seen, and valued who stays in their memory. How do you make someone feel valued? You give them your complete attention. You put away distractions. You listen not just to their words, but to their emotions. You respond to what matters to them, not what's convenient for you. You treat their time as precious and their thoughts as important. How do you make someone feel understood? You reflect back what you hear. You ask follow-up questions that show you're processing their message. You acknowledge their perspective even when it differs from yours. You validate their experience without trying to fix or change it. How do you make someone feel important? You remember details they share. You follow up on things that matter to them. You introduce them to others in ways that highlight their strengths. You seek their advice and genuinely consider their input. But let me ask you this. When you leave a conversation, what feeling do you typically create in others? Do they feel energized or drained, valued or used, heard or ignored, important or insignificant? Most people have never considered this question, yet it determines whether they're remembered positively or forgotten entirely. Carnegie discovered that emotional resonance trumps intellectual brilliance every time. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you make others feel stupid, they'll avoid you. You can have the most impressive credentials, but if you make others feel inadequate, they won't trust you. You can speak with perfect eloquence, but if you make others feel unheard, they won't connect with you. The most successful networkers understand this principle intuitively. They enter every interaction asking not, how can I impress this person, but how can I make this person feel good about themselves? This shift in focus changes everything. About how they communicate, listen, and respond. When you make someone feel important, they associate that positive feeling with you. When you make them feel heard, they see you as trustworthy. When you make them feel valued, they want to reciprocate that value. These emotional connections become the foundation for lasting professional and personal relationships. People don't do business with companies. They do business with people who make them feel confident, comfortable, and respected. They don't refer strangers. They refer people who made them feel good about the interaction. They don't remember facts and figures. They remember how those facts and figures were shared and how they felt during the conversation. This is why Carnegie's principles remain powerful decades after he taught them. Human emotions haven't changed. The need to feel valued, understood, and important is as strong today as it was in his time. Technology may have altered how we communicate, but it hasn't changed what we need from communication. The next time you're in a conversation, pay attention to the emotional atmosphere you're creating. Are you making the other person feel rushed or relaxed, judged or accepted, ignored or appreciated? These feelings will determine whether they remember you fondly or forget you entirely. Small talk opens the door, but real connection begins with deeper curiosity. Most people stop at the surface. They ask about the weather, the traffic, the obvious. These questions serve a purpose. They break the ice, but if you never move beyond them, you never build real connection. Dale Carnegie understood that meaningful relationships require meaningful questions. The difference between small talk and significant conversation isn't the topic, it's the depth. You can have a profound conversation about someone's morning coffee if you ask the right questions. You can have a shallow conversation about their career if you ask the wrong ones. It's not what you ask about. It's how you ask and why you're asking. Here's what most people don't understand. Great questions aren't about gathering information. They're about creating connection. When you ask someone about their challenges, you're not trying to solve their problems. You're trying to understand their experience. When you ask about their goals, you're not positioning yourself to help. You're positioning yourself to care. Think about the conversations that have stayed with you. Were they filled with surface-level exchanges? Or did someone ask you something that made you pause, think, and reveal something real about yourself? The questions that matter are the ones that invite people to share what matters to them. But let me ask you this. What's the difference between a question that extracts information and a question that creates connection? Intent. When you ask someone what they do for work because you're trying to categorize them, you're extracting. When you ask because you're genuinely curious about how they spend their days, you're connecting. Carnegie taught that the best questions flow from genuine interest in the other person's experience. Instead of asking, "What do you do?" try, "What's the most interesting part of your work right now?" Instead of asking, "Where are you from?" try, "What's something about your hometown that most people don't know?" Instead of asking, "How's business?" try, "What's the biggest challenge you're facing?" In your industry, these questions do something powerful. They invite people to move beyond rehearsed answers into authentic sharing. They signal that you're interested in their perspective, not just their position. They create space for real conversation instead of transactional exchange. The secret is to ask questions that require thought, not just memory. Anyone can recite their job title or company name. But when you ask about their biggest professional lesson or their most unexpected career turn, you're inviting them to reflect and share something meaningful. These moments of authentic sharing create genuine connection. Follow-up questions matter, even more than opening questions. When someone shares something with you, your response determines whether the conversation deepens or dies. Most people respond with their own similar story, but master connectors respond with deeper curiosity about what they just heard. If someone mentions a challenge they're facing, don't immediately share your similar challenge. Ask them how they're approaching it. Ask what they've learned so far. Ask what advice they'd give someone facing the same situation. These follow-up questions show that you value their experience and wisdom. Here's a framework that never fails: past, present, future. Ask about something they've learned from experience. Ask about something they're currently navigating. Ask about something they're excited about or working toward. This creates a complete picture of who they are and what matters to them. But remember, questions without genuine curiosity feel like interrogation. People can sense when you're asking because you're supposed to versus asking because you care about the answer. Your tone, your body language, your follow-up responses all communicate your true level of interest. The best questions often start with phrases like, "What's it like to?" or "How did you decide to?" or "What surprised you about?" These phrases invite storytelling rather than fact-sharing. They create space for the other person to reveal something meaningful about their experience, their perspective, their journey. When you ask questions that matter, something magical happens. People lean in, they open up, they share more than they intended to. They see you as someone who cares about their thoughts and experiences. And in a world where most people are too busy talking to truly listen, someone who asks thoughtful questions becomes instantly memorable. People will do anything for someone who values them. This isn't manipulation, it's human nature. We all have a deep psychological need to feel significant, to matter, to be appreciated for who we are and what we contribute. Dale Carnegie discovered that the people who make others feel important become important themselves. But here's the critical distinction: the feeling must be genuine. Fake appreciation is worse than no appreciation at all. People have highly tuned sensors for insincerity. They can tell when you're going through the motions versus when you truly see value in them. Genuine appreciation requires you to actually notice what makes someone valuable. Most people give generic compliments. "Great job," "Nice work," "You're awesome." These phrases are meaningless because they could apply to anyone. But when you notice something specific about someone's approach, their thinking, their character, or their contribution, you create something powerful. You make them feel seen. Think about the last time someone made you feel truly important. They didn't just notice your results, they noticed your process. They didn't just appreciate your success, they appreciated your character. They didn't just acknowledge what you did, they acknowledged who you are. That recognition felt different because it was personal and specific. But let me ask you this: when did you last make someone feel genuinely important? Not by offering hollow praise, but by recognizing something specific and valuable about them. Most of us are so focused on our own performance that we miss opportunities to acknowledge others' excellence. Carnegie taught that sincere appreciation requires 3 elements: attention, recognition, and expression. First, you must pay attention to what others are doing well. Most people are too self-absorbed to notice others' contributions. Second, you must recognize the value in what you observe. This requires moving beyond surface-level acknowledgement to deeper understanding. Third, you must express that recognition in specific, meaningful terms. Here's the framework for genuine appreciation: what they did, why it mattered, and how it affected you or others. Instead of saying, "good presentation," try "the way you structured." That presentation made complex information easy to understand. I could see the audience really connecting with your examples. Your clarity helped everyone grasp concepts that usually confuse people. This approach works because it's specific, it explains the impact, and it shows you are paying attention. The person knows you're not just being polite, you actually noticed their skill and its effect. This kind of recognition makes people feel valued for their unique contributions. The most powerful appreciation focuses on character rather than just performance. Instead of only acknowledging what someone accomplished, acknowledge how they accomplished it. Notice their persistence, their creativity, their kindness, their integrity. These character appreciations go deeper than task recognition because they validate who someone is, not just what they do. People remember how you make them feel about themselves. When you consistently make others feel valuable, capable, and appreciated, they associate those positive feelings with you. They see you as someone who recognizes worth in others. They trust you because you've demonstrated that you value people beyond what they can do for you. But appreciation isn't just about compliments, it's about attention. When you remember details from previous conversations, you show that what they shared mattered to you. When you follow up on things they mentioned, you demonstrate that you value their interests and concerns. When you introduce them to others highlighting their strengths, you publicly affirm their worth. Here's what most people don't understand. Making others feel important doesn't diminish your own importance. It actually enhances it. People are drawn to those who make them feel good about themselves. They want to be around people who see their value and acknowledge their contributions. They recommend, refer, and remember those who made them feel significant. The key is to look for what's genuinely praiseworthy in every person you meet. Everyone has something valuable to offer, a unique perspective, a hard-earned skill, an admirable quality, an interesting experience. Your job is to find it and acknowledge it. This isn't about false flattery. It's about recognizing the real value that exists in every individual. When you make people feel important, you're not just building relationships, you're building a reputation. You become known as someone who sees the best in others, who values people's contributions, who makes others feel good about themselves. This reputation becomes one of your most valuable assets in both personal and professional settings. A person's name is the sweetest sound to their ears. This isn't cliché, it's psychology. Dale Carnegie understood that our names are tied to our identity, our sense of self, our very existence. When someone remembers your name, they're acknowledging that you matter enough to be remembered. When they forget it, they're essentially saying you're forgettable. Yet most people are terrible with names. They meet someone, hear the name, and immediately let it slip away while focusing on their own introduction. They're so worried about how they're being perceived that they miss the most important piece of information about the other person, what they want to be called. Here's what most people don't understand. Forgetting someone's name isn't just embarrassing, it's relationship sabotage. It sends a message that the person wasn't important enough for you to remember. It suggests that you were more focused on yourself than on them. It creates distance instead of connection. Think about how you feel when someone you've met before remembers your name versus when they clearly don't. The person who remembers makes you feel valued, recognized, important. The person who forgets makes you question whether you made any impression at all. This feeling difference is profound and lasting. But let me ask you this. What's your honest track record with names? Do you remember them consistently? Do you use them naturally in conversation? Do you make the effort to learn them correctly. Most people realize they've been sabotaging potential relationships without even knowing it. Carnegie taught specific techniques for name mastery, but the foundation is simple. Names matter enough to deserve your full attention. When someone introduces themselves, stop everything else and focus completely on their name. Repeat it back to them immediately. Use it naturally throughout the conversation. Associate it with something memorable about them. Here's the practical approach. When you hear a name, say it back immediately. "Nice to meet you, Sarah." Then use it again within the first few minutes. "Sarah, how long have you been in this industry?" This repetition helps cement the name in your memory while showing the person that you're paying attention to them. If you didn't catch the name clearly, ask them to repeat it right away. Don't wait and hope it comes up again. Most people are happy to repeat their name if you're genuinely trying to learn it. Say something like, "I want to make sure I have your name right. Could you say it again?" This shows respect and attention. For difficult or unusual names, ask about pronunciation or origin. People often have stories about their names that they enjoy sharing. This curiosity about their name creates connection while helping you remember it better. The conversation about their name becomes a memory hook that makes the name stick. Use the name naturally throughout your conversation, but don't overdo it. Once or twice per conversation is usually enough to show that you remember and value them. Using it too frequently feels forced and unnatural. The goal is to demonstrate that you see them as an individual worth remembering, not to prove that you have a good memory. The real power of names comes in follow-up interactions. When you see someone again weeks or months later and immediately use their name, you create an instant positive impression. You show that they were memorable enough to stick in your mind. This recognition often surprises people in the best way possible. Here's the secret technique that never fails. When you meet someone new, immediately think of someone else you know with the same name. This association creates multiple memory pathways that make the name easier to recall. If you meet David, think of your friend David or your cousin David. This mental connection strengthens memory retention. For networking events or meetings with multiple new people, write names down as soon as possible. Create a simple system where you jot down names along with one identifying detail about each person. This physical act of writing reinforces memory while creating a reference you can review later. But remember, using someone's name is about more than memory. It's about recognition. It's about treating them as an individual rather than just another face in the crowd. It's about showing that they mattered enough for you to remember this most basic piece of information about them. People notice when you remember their names. They notice even more when you forget them. In a world where so many interactions feel impersonal and transactional, the simple act of remembering and using someone's name creates genuine human connection. It makes them feel seen, valued, and important, and that feeling is the foundation of every meaningful relationship you'll ever build. The best networkers aren't trying to get something. They're building something. They understand the fundamental difference between transactional thinking and relational thinking. Most people approach networking like a sales pitch. They have an agenda, a goal, a specific outcome they want to achieve. This mindset kills genuine connection before it even begins. Dale Carnegie discovered that when you enter conversations trying to extract value, people sense your ulterior motives. They feel your agenda. They recognize that you see them as a means to an end rather than as an end in themselves. This awareness creates resistance, suspicion, and distance, the opposite of what you actually want to achieve. Think about the last time someone clearly had an agenda with you. Maybe they wanted a favor, a referral, an introduction, or a sale. How did that feel? Even if their request was reasonable, the transactional nature of the interaction probably left you feeling used rather than valued. This is exactly how others feel when you approach them with obvious self-interest. But here's what most people don't understand. The most successful networkers play a longer game. They're not trying to win this conversation. They're trying to build a relationship that could be valuable for years to come. They focus on creating connection today rather than extracting value today. But let me ask you this. What's your default mindset when you meet someone new? Are you thinking about what they might be able to do for you? Or are you thinking about how you might be able to serve them? This mental orientation determines everything about how the conversation unfolds. Carnegie taught that genuine networking starts with genuine interest in the other person's success. Instead of asking, "How can this person help me?" ask, "How can I help this person?" Instead of thinking, "What do I want them to know about me?" think, "What do I want to learn about them?" This shift in focus changes your entire approach to conversation. When you stop pitching and start connecting, your questions become different. Instead of probing for opportunities to insert your value proposition, you ask about their challenges, their goals, their interests. Instead of steering conversations toward your strengths, you explore theirs. Instead of positioning yourself, you understand them. This approach requires patience and faith. You're investing time and attention without immediate return. You're building relationships without guaranteed payoff. You're focusing on their needs without knowing if they'll ever focus on yours. But this patience is exactly what creates long-term relationship success. People can instantly tell the difference between someone who wants to sell them something and someone who wants to understand them. The person trying to sell creates defensiveness. The person trying to understand creates openness. One builds walls, the other builds bridges. Here's the counterintuitive truth. When you stop trying to get something from people, you often end up getting more than you ever imagined. When you focus on serving others, they want to serve you. When you help them succeed, they want to help you succeed. When you make their goals your priority, they make your goals their priority. This isn't manipulation, it's reciprocity. It's human nature. We want to help people who have helped us. We want to support people who have supported us. We want to refer business to people who have referred business to us. But this reciprocity only works when the initial giving is genuine and without strings attached. The most powerful networkers have learned to derive satisfaction from the connection itself rather than from what the connection might produce. They enjoy learning about people. They find fulfillment in being helpful. They value relationships for their own sake, not just for their instrumental value. When you meet someone interesting, your goal should be to understand them better, not to impress them more. When you discover someone with challenges, your instinct should be to think about how you might help, not how they might help you. When you find someone with expertise, your focus should be on learning from them, not on getting them to notice you. This mindset shift is transformative. Conversations become more natural because you're not constantly calculating angles. People open up more because they sense your genuine interest. Relationships develop organically because there's no pressure or agenda driving the interaction. The irony is that when you stop trying so hard to network effectively, you actually become much more effective at networking. When you focus on building genuine relationships rather than extracting immediate value, you create the kind of connections that produce lasting value for everyone involved. People open up to those who focus on them. This is one of Dale Carnegie's most profound insights and one of the hardest for most people to implement. We're trained from childhood to be impressive, to stand out, to show our worth. But in networking, the people who try hardest to be interesting often end up being the least memorable. Here's the paradox. The more you try to impress others, the less impressed they become. The more you talk about yourself, the less they want to know about you. The more you highlight your achievements, the less they care about your success. This isn't because people are petty or jealous. It's because everyone is primarily interested in themselves. Think about your favorite people to be around. Are they the ones who constantly talk about their accomplishments? The ones who always have a better story than yours? The ones who turn every conversation back to themselves? Of course not. Your favorite people are those who make you feel interesting, important, and heard. But here's what most people don't understand. Being interested in others doesn't make you less interesting. It makes you more magnetic. People are drawn to those who show genuine curiosity about their thoughts, experiences, and perspectives. They remember conversations where they felt heard and understood, not conversations where they were impressed or overwhelmed. But let me ask you this. In your last few conversations, did you spend more time talking or listening? Did you ask more questions or make more statements? Did you learn more about others or share more about yourself? Most people realize they've been doing most of the talking without even noticing. Carnegie discovered that people's favorite topic is themselves, not because they're narcissistic, but because their own experiences are what they know best and care about most. When you give them space to share their thoughts, their challenges, their successes, and their perspectives, you're giving them a gift that few people offer. Genuine attention. This doesn't mean you become invisible or never share anything about it yourself. It means you shift the spotlight. Instead of trying to shine, you help others shine. Instead of being the star of the conversation, you become the director who helps others give their best performance. The secret is to ask follow-up questions that show you're genuinely processing what they're sharing. When someone mentions a challenge they're facing, don't immediately offer solutions or similar experiences. Ask them how they're approaching it. Ask what they've learned so far. Ask what aspects are most difficult. These questions show that you value their thinking and want to understand their perspective. When someone shares a success, don't one-up them with your own achievements. Celebrate theirs. Ask how they accomplished it. Ask what they learned in the process. Ask what advice they'd give someone in a similar situation. This approach makes them feel valued for their expertise and accomplishments. The most powerful phrase in networking might be, "Tell me more about that." These 5 words show that you're interested enough to go deeper, that you value what they're sharing enough to want to understand it better. Most people are so eager to share their own thoughts that they rarely invite others to expand on theirs. Here's the practical application. In every conversation, set a goal to learn at least 3 meaningful things about the other person. Not surface facts like their job title or company name, but deeper insights like their biggest professional challenge, their most important goal, or their most interesting recent experience. When you do share about yourself, make it relevant to what they've said and brief. If they mention struggling with time management and you've found helpful strategies, share one specific technique that worked for you. But then turn the focus back to them by asking if they've tried anything similar or what approaches they're considering. People remember how conversations made them feel, and being genuinely heard feels incredible. In a world where everyone is fighting for attention, someone who gives their attention freely becomes instantly valuable. They become the person others want to talk to, work with, and recommend. The irony is complete. When you stop trying to be the most interesting person in the room and start being the most interested person in the room, you become genuinely interesting to others. People want to know more about someone who shows such genuine curiosity about them. They want to understand what motivates someone to be so focused on others rather than themselves. This approach also makes you a better learner. Every person you meet has experiences, insights, and wisdom that you lack. When you approach them with genuine curiosity, you discover things that can help you grow personally and professionally. You learn from their successes and their mistakes. You gain perspective from their unique point of view. Master networkers, understand that being interested is a skill that can be developed. It requires practice to ask better questions, to listen more carefully, to remember what matters to people. But the investment pays enormous dividends in the quality of relationships you build and the opportunities those relationships create. Networking is emotional alignment, not just verbal exchange. Dale Carnegie understood that people connect through feeling as much as through thinking. The words you speak matter, but the energy you project determines whether those words land with impact or fall flat. Most people focus on what to say while ignoring how to feel. Here's what most people don't understand. Every person you meet is broadcasting an emotional frequency. They might be excited about a new project, frustrated with a challenge, curious about an opportunity, or anxious about a decision. When you can read and match their emotional state, you create instant rapport that transcends words. This isn't about being fake or manipulative. It's about being emotionally intelligent and responsive. When someone is enthusiastic, matching their energy shows that you appreciate their excitement. When someone is concerned, matching their tone shows that you take their worry seriously. When someone is thoughtful, matching their pace shows that you respect their processing style. Think about the conversations that flowed effortlessly versus those that felt awkward or forced. The smooth conversations probably involved natural, emotional synchronization. Both people were operating on similar energy levels, speaking at compatible paces, sharing appropriate levels of intensity. The awkward conversations likely involved emotional mismatches. One person excited while the other was subdued, one urgent while the other was relaxed. But let me ask you this. How often do you pay attention to the emotional atmosphere someone else is creating? Do you notice whether they're speaking quickly or slowly, whether they seem energized or tired, whether they're focused or distracted? Most people are so concerned with their own presentation that they miss crucial emotional cues from others. Carnegie taught that emotional mirroring happens naturally between people who are truly connecting. When you're genuinely interested in someone and paying attention to their experience, you automatically adjust your energy to match theirs. This isn't conscious mimicry. It's empathetic responsiveness. The key is to observe before you engage. When you first meet someone, take a moment to sense their energy level, their pace, their emotional state. Are they high energy and animated? Match that enthusiasm. Are they calm and measured? Respect that steadiness. Are they rushed and focused? Adapt to their urgency without adding pressure. Your body language speaks as loudly as your words. If someone is leaning in with interest, mirror that engagement. If they're standing back with arms crossed, respect their need for space. If they're making direct eye contact, return that attention. If they seem more comfortable with indirect gaze, don't force intensity they're not offering. Voice tone and pace are equally important. If someone speaks quickly with high energy, matching their pace shows you can keep up with their thinking. If someone speaks slowly and deliberately, rushing your responses suggests you're not respecting their processing style. If someone speaks softly, matching their volume creates intimacy rather than overwhelming them. But here's the crucial distinction. Mirror their energy, not their exact behaviors. You're not trying to copy them like a parrot. You're trying to create emotional harmony that makes them feel comfortable and understood. This requires sensitivity and subtlety, not obvious imitation. Pay attention to their emotional needs in the moment. Someone who seems overwhelmed needs calm, steady energy from you. Someone who seems bored needs more engagement and enthusiasm. Someone who seems uncertain needs confidence and reassurance. Someone who seems excited needs someone who can share and amplify their enthusiasm. This emotional attunement creates a sense of understanding that goes beyond words. People feel like you get them when you respond to their emotional state appropriately. They sense that you're paying attention not just to what they're saying, but to how they're feeling as they say it. The most skilled networkers do this naturally because they've developed genuine empathy and emotional awareness. They're not performing emotional mirroring as a technique. They're genuinely responsive to the emotional needs and states of others. This authenticity makes their emotional attunement feel natural rather than calculated. When you master emotional alignment, your conversations become more natural, more comfortable, and more memorable. People leave feeling like you understood them on a deeper level than just their words. They feel emotionally heard and validated, which creates the foundation for lasting connection and trust. People remember stories, not titles. Dale Carnegie knew that facts tell, but stories sell. And this applies to selling yourself as much as selling anything else. Your job title might explain what you do, but your story explains who you are. Most people recite their credentials when they should be sharing their journey. Here's what most people don't understand. No one cares about your resume in conversation. They care about your experiences, your lessons, your perspectives, your growth. When someone asks what you do, they're not requesting your LinkedIn summary. They're opening the door for you to share something meaningful about your path and your purpose. Think about the most memorable people you've met. Did they impress you with their titles and achievements? Or did they connect with you through authentic stories about their journey, their challenges, their discoveries? The people who stick in your memory are those who shared something real about their experience, not just something impressive about their position. But let me ask you this. When someone asks what you do, what's your default response? Do you rattle off your title and company? Do you list your responsibilities and credentials? Or do you share a brief story that gives them insight into your journey and your passion? Most people realize they've been giving resume recitations instead of human connections. Carnegie taught that your personal story should accomplish three things: explain what you do in terms others can understand, reveal why you care about what you do, and invite further conversation rather than ending it. This isn't about impressing people. It's about connecting with them through shared human experiences. The framework is simple: problem, journey, impact. Start with a challenge or problem that led you to your current path. Share briefly how you've approached or solved that challenge. End with the impact you're making or the value you're creating. This structure is engaging because it follows the natural arc of human experience and struggle. Instead of saying, "I'm a financial advisor," try, "I help families avoid the money mistakes I watched my parents make growing up." Instead of saying, "I run a marketing agency," try, "I help small business owners stop wasting money on advertising that doesn't work." Instead of saying, "I'm in software development," try, "I build tools that help people spend less time on boring tasks so they can focus on work that matters." Keep it brief, 30 seconds maximum. Long stories lose people's attention and make you seem self-absorbed. Short stories create curiosity and invite questions. Your goal isn't to tell your complete biography. It's to offer a glimpse that makes them want to know more. Make it conversational, not promotional. You're sharing your story with a new friend, not pitching to a potential customer. Use normal language, not industry jargon. Focus on the human elements, challenges, discoveries, growth, rather than just professional achievements. The best stories reveal something about your character, not just your career. They show how you think, what you value, what motivates you. They give people insight into who you are as a person, which is far more memorable than what you do for work, and with curiosity about them. After sharing your brief story, immediately turn the focus back to the other person. Ask about their journey, their challenges, their perspective. This shows that you shared to create connection, not to dominate conversation. Practice your story until it feels natural, not rehearsed. You should be able to tell it conversationally without thinking about the words. The structure should be clear in your mind, but the delivery should feel spontaneous and authentic. Remember that different situations may call for different versions of your story. The version you tell at a professional networking event might emphasize different elements than the version you tell at a social gathering. But the core structure, problem, journey, impact, remains consistent. Your story should evolve as you do. What challenges are you facing now? What are you learning? What impact are you creating? Keep your story current and relevant to your present situation, not stuck in past achievements. When you master the art of brief, bold storytelling, you transform from someone who has a job into someone who has a journey. People remember journeys. They connect with struggles and growth. They respect authenticity over achievement, and they want to be part of stories that matter. Most people fail after the first meeting. They have great conversations, exchange, contact information, and then either never follow up or follow up so poorly that they damage the connection they work to create. Dale Carnegie understood that the initial meeting is just the beginning, The follow-up determines whether that connection becomes a relationship. Here's what most people don't understand. Follow-up isn't about reminding people that you exist. It's about continuing the conversation you started. It's about adding value to their life. It's about nurturing the seed of connection you planted during your first interaction. Think about the follow-up messages you've received from people you've met. How many felt genuine and valuable? How many felt like generic sales pitches or desperate attempts to stay in touch? The ones you appreciated probably referenced your actual conversation, offered something helpful, or continued a topic you discussed together. But let me ask you this, what's your follow-up strategy after meeting someone interesting? Do you have a generic template you send everyone? Do you wait weeks before reaching out? Do you jump immediately into business talk? Most people realize they've been treating follow-up as an afterthought rather than as the crucial relationship-building opportunity it actually is. Carnegie taught that effective follow-up feels like a natural continuation of your conversation, not a forced business interaction. The best follow-up messages reference specific details from your discussion, offer something relevant and valuable, and invite continued dialogue without pressure or agenda. Timing matters enormously. Follow up within 24-48 hours while your conversation is still fresh in both your minds. Waiting too long makes you seem disorganized or disinterested. Following up too quickly can seem desperate or pushy. The sweet spot is soon enough to show you valued the interaction, but not so soon that you seem to have nothing else going on. Personalization is non-negotiable. Reference something specific from your conversation, a challenge they mentioned, a goal they shared, an interest they expressed. This shows that you were actually listening and that they made an impression on you. Generic messages communicate that you see them as just another contact rather than as a unique individual. Lead with value, not need. Instead of asking for something or suggesting a meeting, offer something helpful. Share an article related to a challenge they mentioned. Make an introduction to someone who could help them. Offer a resource that addresses their interests. This approach positions you as someone who gives rather than someone who takes. Keep it brief and genuine. Long follow-up. Messages feel overwhelming and self-important. Short messages feel respectful of their time and focused on them rather than on you. Write like you're sending a note to a friend, not drafting a business proposal. Here's a simple framework that works. Reference your conversation, offer value, invite response. I enjoyed our conversation about sustainable marketing strategies. I thought you might find this case study interesting. It shows how one company reduced their environmental impact while improving their ROI. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have a chance to review it. Avoid immediately suggesting meetings or phone calls unless they specifically mentioned wanting to continue the conversation. Most people are overwhelmed with meeting requests. Focus first on building the relationship through valuable exchanges. Before proposing time commitments, make it easy for them to respond or ignore. Don't ask questions that require lengthy responses or create pressure to engage. Offer value freely without strings attached. If they want to continue the conversation, they will. If they don't, you've still left a positive impression by being helpful. Follow up consistently, but not frequently. After your initial follow-up, wait for their response before reaching out again. If they don't respond, you can try once more. After a few weeks with a different type of value, but don't become the person who won't take a hint. The most successful networkers think of follow-up as relationship investment, not contact management. They're building long-term connections based on mutual value and genuine interest. They understand that the goal isn't to stay in touch, it's to stay valuable to each other. When you master human follow-up, you transform brief encounters into lasting relationships. You become someone people look forward to hearing from, rather than someone they hope will stop contacting them. You build a network based on mutual respect and genuine value rather than on persistent self-promotion. Give first, ask later. This principle separates the great networkers from the merely connected. Dale Carnegie understood that the most powerful relationships are built on a foundation of generous service rather than calculated exchange. When you consistently add value to others' lives without keeping score, you become someone they want to support in return. Here's what most people don't understand. Value doesn't always mean money or business opportunities. Value can be an introduction, an insight, a resource, a recommendation, or simply thoughtful attention. Most people have valuable knowledge, connections, or perspectives they could share if they just thought about how to help others succeed. Think about the people you most want to help and support. Are they the ones who are constantly asking for favors, or are they the ones who have consistently added value to your life through their knowledge, connections, introductions, or support? The answer is obvious. We naturally want to reciprocate generosity and support those who have supported us. But let me ask you this. When you meet someone new, what's your default mindset? Are you thinking about what they might be able to do for you? Or are you thinking about what you might be able to do for them? This mental orientation determines everything about how you approach relationship building. Carnegie taught that the secret to building powerful networks is to become genuinely useful to others. This doesn't mean being a pushover or saying yes to everything. It means actively looking for ways to help others succeed, solve problems, or achieve their goals. It means being generous with your knowledge, your connections, and your time. Key is to listen for opportunities to help during your conversations. When someone mentions a challenge they're facing, think about whether you know someone who's solved that problem. When they express interest in learning about something, consider whether you have resources or insights to share. When they're looking for connections in a particular industry or location, review your network for potential introductions. Start small and specific. You don't need to solve their biggest problems or make life-changing introductions. Often the most appreciated help is small but thoughtful. Share an article that addresses their interest. Recommend a book that helped you with a similar challenge. Introduce them to someone who shares their passion or profession. Information is one of the most valuable gifts you can give. If you learn something interesting that relates to a conversation you had with someone, share it with them. If you attend a conference or read a report that contains insights relevant to their business or interests, send them the key takeaways. This positions you as someone who thinks of them and wants to help them stay informed. Introductions are incredibly powerful when done thoughtfully. If you know two people who should meet each other, whether for business reasons, shared interests, or mutual benefit, make the introduction, but do it properly. Get permission from both parties first. Explain clearly why you think they should. Connect. Make the introduction valuable for both people, not just convenient for you. Your time and attention are also valuable gifts. When someone needs to talk through a challenge, offering to listen can be incredibly helpful. When someone is making a difficult decision, offering to be a sounding board provides real value. When someone is celebrating a success, offering genuine enthusiasm and congratulations makes their achievement more meaningful. The secret is to give without strings attached. Don't keep a mental scorecard of what you've given versus what you've received. Don't give with the expectation of immediate return. Don't remind people of what you've done for them. Give because you genuinely want to help, and trust that generosity creates positive energy that comes back in unexpected ways. Here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to get value from your network and start focusing on giving value to your network, you end up receiving more value than you ever imagined. People want to help those who have helped them. They want to refer business to those who have referred business to them. They want to support those who have supported them. But the value often comes from unexpected sources and in unexpected forms. The person you helped might not be able to help you directly, but they might know someone who can. The favor you did might not be reciprocated immediately, but it might come back when you need it most. The value you created might not be measured, in dollars, but in opportunities, insights, or relationships. When you approach networking with a service mindset rather than a sales mindset, everything changes. You become someone people want to know, work with, and recommend. You build relationships based on mutual value and genuine care rather than on transactional exchange. Trust is built in the little things. Dale Carnegie discovered that small favors often create stronger bonds than large gestures. When you consistently do small things to help others, you establish yourself as reliable, thoughtful, and genuinely caring. These small acts accumulate into significant relationship capital that becomes invaluable over time. Here's what most people don't understand. Small favors are more powerful than big ones because they're easier to accept and harder to forget. When you do something huge for someone, they might feel obligated or uncomfortable about the debt they owe you. But when you do something small and thoughtful, they feel appreciated and cared for without feeling burdened. Think about the people you trust most in your professional and personal life. Did they earn that trust through one grand gesture? Or did they build it through consistent small acts of helpfulness, reliability, and thoughtfulness? Most trusted relationships are built on a foundation of many small positive interactions rather than a few large ones. But let me ask you this. How often do you look for small ways to help the people in your network? Do you notice when someone mentions a minor challenge you could easily address? Do you remember small details that would matter to them? Most people miss these opportunities because they're waiting for chances to do something impressive rather than something helpful. Carnegie taught that small favors work because they demonstrate character more than capability. Anyone can do big favors when they have significant resources. But choosing to do small favors shows that you pay attention, that you care about others' success, and that you're willing to invest your time and energy without expecting proportional return. The key is to make helping others a habit rather than an occasional gesture. Look for small ways to be useful in every interaction. When someone mentions they're traveling to a city you know well, offer a restaurant recommendation. When they're facing a decision you've navigated before, share the key lesson you learned. When they're looking for a specific type of resource, send them the best one you've found. Timing makes small favors more powerful. The best time to help someone is when they need it, not when it's convenient for you. If someone mentions they're preparing for an important presentation, offering relevant advice that day is much more valuable than offering it next month. If they're dealing with a challenging situation, providing helpful resources immediately shows that you are listening and you care. Remember details that matter to others. When someone mentions their child's graduation, their parent's health issue, or their upcoming vacation, make a note and follow up later. A simple, "How did your daughter's graduation go?" or "I hope your father is feeling better," shows that you remember what's important to them as a person, not just as a business contact. Small favors can be as simple as making thoughtful introductions, sharing relevant articles, offering quick advice, providing resources, or just remembering to ask about things they've mentioned. The size of the favor matters less than the thoughtfulness behind it and the consistency with which you offer help. Be specific in your offers to help. Instead of saying, "Let me know if there's anything I can do," offer something concrete. "I know you mentioned looking for a good accountant. I can introduce you to mine if you'd like." Specific offers are more likely to be accepted and more valuable when they're accepted. Don't overextend yourself or promise more than you can deliver. Small favors work because they're manageable for you and comfortable for others to accept. If you consistently offer help, you can't provide or promise things you can't deliver, you'll damage relationships rather than build them. Make helping others easier by staying organized about what you learn about people. Keep notes about their interests, their challenges, their goals, and their needs. This information helps you spot opportunities to be helpful and remember details that matter to them. The most successful networkers have trained themselves to think, "How can I help?" in every interaction. They've made generosity a reflex rather than a calculation. They look for ways to add value to others' lives because it's become part of who they are, not just part of their networking strategy. Small favors create positive momentum in relationships. When someone helps you in a small way, you naturally want to help them back. When you consistently help others, you create a network of people who want to support your success. This mutual support system becomes one of your most valuable professional and personal assets. The beauty of small favors is that everyone can do them. You don't need wealth, power, or extensive connections. You just need attention, thoughtfulness, and genuine care for others' success. These qualities are available to everyone and more powerful than most people realize. You don't need the perfect line. You need real attention. Dale Carnegie understood that authentic presence trumps polished performance every time. In a world where everyone is trying to impress, the person who simply shows up fully engaged and genuinely interested becomes instantly magnetic. Presence is about being completely where you are with the person you're with. Here's what most people don't understand. Trying too hard to be impressive actually makes you less impressive. When you're focused on how you're coming across, you can't focus on the other person. When you're thinking about your next clever comment, you're not listening to their current important one. When you're performing, you're not connecting. Think about the people you most enjoy being around. Are they the ones with the smoothest talking points, the most rehearsed stories, the most polished presentations? Or are they the ones who make you feel like you have their complete attention when you're speaking? The ones who respond authentically to what you're actually saying rather than what they plan to say? But let me ask you this. In your last conversation, were you more focused on what you were going to say next or on what the other person was saying right now? Were you thinking about how you were being perceived or about understanding their perspective? Most people realize they've been performing rather than being present. Carnegie taught that full presence is the greatest gift you can give another person. In our distracted, multitasking world, someone who gives you their complete attention feels rare and valuable. They're not checking their phone, scanning the room for more important people, or clearly thinking about their next comment. While you're speaking, presence starts with physical attention. Put away devices, make appropriate eye contact, face the person you're speaking with. These seem like basic courtesies, but they're increasingly rare. Most people are physically present but mentally scattered, creating the impression that something else is more important than the current conversation. Mental presence is even more powerful than physical presence. This means clearing your mind of other concerns and focusing completely on understanding the person in front of you. It means listening, not just to their words, but to their emotions, their concerns, their excitement. It means being curious about their perspective rather than planning your response. Emotional presence means being genuinely affected by what others share with you. When someone tells you about a challenge, let yourself feel concern for their situation. When they share good news, let yourself feel happy for their success. This emotional responsiveness creates connection that no amount of clever conversation can match. The secret to presence is slowing down internally even when the environment around you is fast-paced. Take a breath before responding. Pause to make sure you understand what they're really saying. Ask clarifying questions when you're not certain about their meaning. This deliberate pace shows respect for their thoughts and creates space for deeper conversation. Presence also means being comfortable with silence. Most people rush to fill quiet moments with words, but skilled connectors allow space for others to think, process, and add more to what they've said. These pauses often lead to the most meaningful parts of conversations as people share what's really on their minds. Stop trying to have the right answer for everything. Presence means being comfortable saying, "I don't know," or "I haven't thought about that," or "That's interesting. Tell me more." These responses keep the focus on learning and understanding, rather than on demonstrating your knowledge or expertise. Be responsive to the moment rather than sticking to your agenda. If someone shares something unexpected, follow their lead instead of steering back to your planned topics. The best conversations happen when both people are flexible enough to explore whatever emerges naturally from their interaction. Presence requires practice because our default mode is often distraction and performance. Start by committing to be fully present for just one conversation each day. Notice when your mind wanders and gently bring it back to the person in front of you. Pay attention to how differently people respond when they sense your complete attention. The irony is perfect. When you stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be present, you become truly impressive to others. People remember conversations where they felt heard, understood, and valued more than conversations where they were dazzled or entertained. They want to be around people who make them feel important rather than people who make themselves look important. Presence is a skill that improves every other networking ability. When you're truly present, your questions become more thoughtful, your responses more genuine, your interest more apparent. You become the kind of person others want to talk to, work with, and recommend to others. This isn't sales, it's human connection. Dale Carnegie revolutionized business relationships by treating them as human relationships first. He understood that the strongest professional networks are built on genuine personal connections, mutual respect, and authentic care for each other's well-being and success. Here's what most people don't understand. The best business relationships feel like friendships because they're based on the same principles: trust, mutual interest, shared experiences, and genuine care for each other. When you approach networking like you're collecting contacts, you create a database. When you approach it like you're making friends, you create a community. Think about your strongest professional relationships. Do they feel transactional or personal? Do you only interact when you need something from each other? Or do you genuinely enjoy each other's company, celebrate each other's successes, and support each other through challenges? The relationships that have lasted and proven most valuable are almost certainly the ones that feel more like friendships. But let me ask you this. How do you approach new professional connections? Do you immediately categorize them by their potential usefulness to you? Do you maintain contact only when you have a business reason? Or do you get to know them as people, show interest in their lives beyond work, and invest in the relationship for its own sake? Carnegie taught that friendship-based networking creates stronger, more durable, and more enjoyable professional relationships. Friends help each other not because they have to, but because they want to. Friends think of each other when opportunities arise. Friends trust each other with important introductions and recommendations. The key difference is long-term thinking versus short-term extraction. Friendship builders play the long game. They invest time in getting to know people as individuals. They remember personal details, celebrate milestones, and offer support during difficult times. They see networking as relationship building rather than contact collecting, show genuine interest in people's lives beyond their professional roles. Ask about their families, their hobbies, their travels, their interests. Remember these details and follow up on them in future conversations. People appreciate being seen as whole persons rather than just business functions. Celebrate their successes and support them through challenges, even when there's no business benefit to you. Send congratulations when they get promoted, change jobs, or achieve personal milestones. Offer encouragement when they're facing difficulties. Check in occasionally just to see how they're doing. Be willing to help even when there's no immediate reciprocal benefit. Friends help friends because they care, not because they're keeping score. This generosity of spirit creates stronger bonds than any transactional relationship ever could. Make time for relationship maintenance that has nothing to do with business. Invite people for coffee just to catch up. Attend their personal celebrations. Include them in social activities when appropriate. These non-business interactions often strengthen professional relationships more than business meetings do. Share appropriate personal information about yourself as well. Let people know you as a person, not just as a professional. Share your interests, your challenges, your goals. This vulnerability and authenticity invites others to do the same, creating deeper connections. Remember that friendship-based networking is quality over quantity. You can't be genuine friends with hundreds of people. Focus on building deeper relationships with fewer people rather than superficial connections with many. A dozen strong friendship-based professional relationships will be more valuable than hundreds of weak contacts. Be patient with relationship development. Friendships don't happen overnight, and neither do friendship-based professional relationships. Invest consistently over time without expecting immediate returns. The strongest relationships often take months or years to fully develop. Stay in touch regularly but naturally. Don't let important relationships drift due to neglect, but don't be mechanical about contact either. Reach out when you have something genuine to share, when you're thinking of them, or when you have a legitimate reason to reconnect. The most successful professionals understand that business is ultimately about relationships between people. Products, services, and companies change, but relationships endure. When you build genuine friendships within your professional network, you create a support system that lasts throughout your career. People do business with people they like, trust, and want to see succeed. When your professional relationships are built on genuine friendship, others become invested in your success because they care about you as a person. This creates opportunities, referrals, and support that no amount of strategic networking can manufacture. The friendship approach also makes networking more enjoyable and sustainable. Instead of dreading networking events or feeling like you're using people, you approach relationship building with genuine excitement about meeting interesting people and creating meaningful connections. This positive energy is attractive, and authentic friendship-based networking also weathers difficulties better than transactional networking. When challenges arise, business problems, career setbacks, economic downturns, friends support each other through tough times rather than disappearing when you can't immediately provide value. This approach requires you to be genuinely interested in others as people, not just as business resources. It means caring about their personal growth, their family well-being, their happiness beyond their professional success. It means being willing to invest time and energy in relationships that may never produce direct business benefits. But here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop treating your professional network as a business tool and start treating it as a community of friends, it becomes the most powerful business tool you could ever have. Friends become your strongest advocates, your most reliable referral sources, your most trusted advisors, and your most valuable supporters. The legacy of Carnegie's approach is clear. The most successful people build networks that feel like extended families rather than contact lists. They create communities of mutual support rather than databases of potential resources. They invest in relationships rather than transactions, and in doing so, they build both professional success and personal fulfillment. The best networkers cut through the crowd by giving full presence to one person at a time. Dale Carnegie understood that in noisy, crowded environments where everyone is competing for attention, the person who gives focused attention becomes instantly valuable. Your superpower isn't being the loudest voice in the room, it's making others feel like the only voice that matters. Here's what most people don't understand. Networking events amplify every social insecurity and competitive instinct. People feel pressure to work the room, collect contacts, and make impressions. In this chaos of competing agendas, someone who focuses completely on one conversation at a time creates an oasis of calm and genuine connection. Think about the last networking event you attended. How many conversations do you actually remember? How many people made you feel truly heard and valued? Most interactions blend together in a blur of small talk and business cards, but the few people who gave you their complete attention stand out in your memory like beacons. But let me ask you this. At networking events, Are you focused on the person in front of you or scanning the room for more important people to meet? Are you listening to understand their message or waiting for them to finish so you can deliver yours? Are you present with them or mentally calculating how to maximize your time? Carnegie taught that networking events aren't about meeting the most people. They're about creating the most meaningful connections. One genuinely engaged conversation is worth more than 10 superficial exchanges. One person who remembers you fondly is more valuable than 10 people who barely remember meeting you. The secret is to create intimacy in public spaces. Even in a crowded, noisy room, you can make your conversation partner feel like they have your complete attention. Face them directly. Make eye contact. Lean in slightly to show engagement. Block out distractions and focus entirely on what they're sharing. Use their name naturally during the conversation. In a room full of strangers, hearing your own name feels personal and important. It signals that you see them as an individual rather than just another face in the crowd. It creates a moment of personal connection in an impersonal environment. Ask questions that require them to think rather than just recite. Instead of, "What do you do?" try, "What's the most interesting challenge you're working on right now?" Instead of, "How's business?" try, "What's changing in your industry that most people don't see coming?" These questions invite authentic sharing rather than elevator pitch recitation. Listen for emotional cues, not just informational content. When someone mentions a challenge, hear the frustration or concern in their voice. When they share an accomplishment, notice the pride or excitement. Respond to the emotion as much as the facts. This emotional responsiveness makes them feel truly heard. Resist the urge to immediately share your similar experience when they tell you something. Instead, ask follow-up questions that show you're processing what they've shared. How did you approach that? What did you learn from that experience? What advice would you give someone facing the same situation? This keeps the focus on them rather than shifting it to you. Create physical space for real conversation when possible. If you're at a standing event, suggest moving to a quieter area or stepping away from the main crowd. If you're in a loud environment, position yourself to minimize distractions. These small actions show that you value the conversation enough to optimize conditions for real connection. End conversations gracefully before they become stale. It's better to have one meaningful 10-minute conversation than one awkward 20-minute conversation where you've run out of things to say. When you've had a good exchange, acknowledge it. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I hope we can continue it soon. Follow up specifically on conversations that felt meaningful. Don't just collect business cards. Collect insights about the people you meet. What challenges are they facing? What goals are they pursuing? What interests them beyond work? This information helps you follow up in ways that show you were genuinely listening. Quality over quantity becomes your mantra. Instead of trying to meet 20 people superficially, focus on meeting 5 people meaningfully. Instead of collecting the most business cards, focus on creating the most authentic connections. Instead of working the entire room, focus on being fully present for the conversations you choose to have. The irony is powerful. By slowing down in a fast-paced environment, you actually become more memorable and effective. By focusing on fewer people, you create stronger impressions. By being present instead of performing, you become someone people want to know better. In a world where everyone is fighting for attention, the person who gives attention becomes magnetic. In a room full of people trying to impress, the person who seeks to understand becomes impressive. In an environment of competing egos, the person who makes others feel important becomes truly important. Relationships fade when not nurtured, but they don't have to die. Dale Carnegie understood that professional relationships require maintenance, but that maintenance must feel natural and valuable rather than forced or needy. The art is in reconnecting with grace, adding value, and rebuilding connection without creating awkwardness or obligation. Here's what most people don't understand. Reaching out to dormant connections doesn't have to feel uncomfortable if you approach it with the right mindset and method. The discomfort comes from feeling like you're bothering someone or being transparent about needing something. But when you reach out to add value rather than extract it, reconnection becomes a gift rather than an imposition. Think about the reconnection messages you've received that felt good versus those that felt awkward. The good ones probably offered something valuable, referenced your shared history meaningfully, and invited connection without pressure. The awkward ones likely felt sudden, self-serving, or desperately timed to someone's immediate need. But let me ask you this. How many valuable professional relationships have you let drift simply because you didn't know how to reconnect gracefully? How many people who could add value to your life and you to theirs have become distant memories because neither of you knew how to bridge the gap that time created? Carnegie taught that successful reconnection requires 3 elements: genuine, reason, valuable content, and graceful approach. You need a legitimate reason that's about them or mutual interest, rather than immediate self-interest. You need something valuable to offer or share. And you need an approach that feels natural, rather than calculated. Timing matters enormously. Don't reach out only when you need something. The best time to reconnect is when you have something valuable to offer or when you've learned something that would interest them. Reach out when you can give rather than when you need to receive. Reference your shared history specifically but briefly. I was just thinking about our conversation at the Austin conference about sustainable manufacturing. Or I remember you mentioning your interest in emerging markets when we worked together. This shows that your connection meant something to you and that you remember them as an individual. Lead with value or genuine interest. Share an article that relates to their work or interests. Offer an introduction that could be helpful to them. Ask for their perspective on something in their area of expertise. Congratulate them on a recent accomplishment you noticed. Make the initial contact about them, not about you. Keep the initial message brief and low pressure. Long messages feel overwhelming and suggest you're investing too much emotional energy in the reconnection. Short messages feel respectful of their time and casual about the outreach. End with an easy way for them to respond or ignore without feeling guilty. Here's a framework that works: brief personal reference, valuable content, or genuine interest. Easy response option. I remember your insights on digital transformation from our IBM days. I thought you might find this Harvard Business Review piece on AI implementation interesting. Would love to hear your thoughts if you have a chance to read it. Don't apologize for the time gap unless it's relevant. Sorry it's been so long since we talked immediately creates awkwardness and suggests you feel guilty about something. Most professional relationships naturally have gaps. It's normal, not something requiring apology. Be prepared for any response, including no response. Some people will be delighted to hear from you. Others may be too busy or not interested in reconnecting. Both responses are fine and don't reflect on your worth or the value of your outreach. Don't take silence personally or follow up repeatedly if you don't hear back. When someone responds positively, suggest a specific next step that's easy for them. Instead of, "We should get together sometime," try, "Would you be interested in grabbing coffee next week? I'm free Tuesday or Thursday morning." Specific suggestions are easier to accept or decline than vague propositions. Focus on rebuilding the relationship gradually rather than jumping immediately to business discussions. Catch up on their current situation. Share relevant updates about your own path. Reestablish personal connection before exploring professional opportunities. Relationships that were once strong can be rebuilt, but they need time to warm up again. Use mutual connections when appropriate. If you have a mutual friend or colleague who could naturally facilitate reconnection, consider asking them to make an introduction or mention that you'd like to reconnect. This third-party validation can make your outreach feel more natural and less random. The most elegant reconnections feel inevitable rather than calculated. They happen because you genuinely thought of the person in a positive context and had a good reason to reach out. They create value for the other person rather than immediately asking for value from them. They rebuild connection naturally rather than forcing immediate intimacy. Master reconnectors understand that relationships are living things that can be revived with the right care and attention. They don't let valuable connections die from neglect, but they also don't try to force resurrection through desperate or clumsy outreach. They approach reconnection as an art form that requires patience, value, and genuine care for the other person's experience. Not because you're impressive, but because you make others feel impressive. This is Dale Carnegie's ultimate insight, and the culmination of everything we've explored together. The most magnetic people aren't those who command attention for themselves, but those who give attention so generously that others feel valued, understood, and important in their presence. Here's what most people don't understand. Being unforgettable isn't about being perfect, brilliant, or extraordinary. It's about making others feel perfect, brilliant, and extraordinary when they're with you. It's about creating experiences where people leave feeling better about themselves than when they arrived. Think about the most unforgettable people in your life. What made them memorable? Was it their achievements, their intelligence, their charisma? Or was it how they made you feel? How they listened to you, believed in you, encouraged you, valued you? The people who stay in our hearts are those who saw something valuable in us and reflected it back with genuine appreciation. But let me ask you this. When people leave conversations with you, how do they feel? Do they feel heard or ignored? Valued or judged? Important or insignificant? Energized or drained? Your answer to this question determines whether you're building a network of advocates or a collection of acquaintances. Carnegie's genius was recognizing that human beings have an insatiable hunger to feel significant, valued, and understood. Most people spend their entire lives seeking recognition, appreciation, and validation. When you become someone who consistently provides these emotional needs, you become irreplaceable in others' lives. The secret is genuine fascination with others. Not because you want something from them, but because you recognize that every person has a unique story, valuable insights, and interesting perspectives. When you approach people with authentic curiosity about their experiences, their challenges, their dreams, and their wisdom, they sense your genuine interest and respond with openness. Make people feel like experts in their own lives. Ask questions that invite them to share their knowledge, their experiences, their opinions. Listen as if you're learning something valuable, because you are. People rarely get asked thoughtful questions about their expertise, their journey, or their perspective. When you provide this opportunity, you give them a gift that few others offer. Celebrate others' successes more enthusiastically than your own. When someone shares good news, respond with genuine excitement and detailed interest. Ask how they accomplished it, what it means to them, what they learned in the process. This celebration of their achievements makes them feel valued and appreciated in a way that creates lasting positive associations with you. See potential in others that they might not see in themselves. Notice their strengths, their talents, their possibilities. Point out qualities they possess that make them valuable. Share observations about their capabilities that help them recognize their own worth. This kind of recognition is powerful because it comes from external validation of internal value. Remember what matters to people and follow up on it. If someone mentions their child's graduation, their parent's health concern, or their upcoming presentation, make a note and ask about it later. This attention to their personal concerns shows that you see them as a complete person worthy of ongoing interest and care. Create opportunities for others to shine. Introduce them to people who could value their expertise. Recommend them for opportunities that match their strengths. Include them in conversations where their knowledge would be valued. Share their achievements with others who should know about their capabilities. This advocacy creates loyalty and appreciation that lasts for years. Listen not just to what people say, but to what they need. Sometimes what someone needs is encouragement. Sometimes it's practical advice. Sometimes it's just someone who will listen without judgment. Sometimes it's introduction to the right person or resource. When you consistently provide what people actually need, rather than what's convenient for you to give, you become invaluable. The most unforgettable people have learned that generosity of attention is the rarest and most valuable gift in our distracted world. They understand that making others feel important doesn't diminish their own importance. It actually enhances it. They recognize that the best way to become significant is to help others feel significant. Here's the beautiful truth. When you focus on making others feel impressive, you become genuinely impressive yourself. When you help others succeed, you create a network of people invested in your success. When you make others feel valued, you become valuable to them. This isn't manipulation. It's the natural result of genuine care and attention. The legacy you build through Carnegie's approach isn't just a network. It's a community of people who think well of you, speak well of you, and want good things to happen to you. It's a collection of relationships based on mutual respect, genuine care, and authentic appreciation. You already have what it takes. Now, go prove it. Start with one conversation where you focus entirely on making the other person feel heard, valued, and important. Notice how they respond. Notice how you feel. Then make this your standard approach to every interaction. Watch as your network transforms from a collection of contacts into a community of advocates, supporters, and friends.